Welcome back to my Mental Health and Crime channel. My name is Huda Longdon. This is the case of the Idaho quadruple murders that took place on the 13th of November 2022. May the 4 victims rest in peace, condolence to their families, and may justice be served. This is a heartbreaking case. 4 young students lost their life in a very brutal way.
It is a place where people can submit that information. We want to take this next question, and it comes from Allison from YouTube, or it might be Alacan. I hope I'm pronouncing that properly. Did they interview peeps from the frat house? And let me tell you, I will answer that question. I'll take that one. Yes, they have. And I've spoken to people at the Sigma Chi house where Ethan was a member and where XANA and Ethan attended the party that night at the Sigma Chi house on November 12th, just a short distance away from the house where the murders occurred. Ethan lived at the frat house, XANA at her home on King Road with Maddie and Kaylee, and those people have been interviewed, and we've been told by the president of Sigma Chi that they are cooperating with law enforcement and have told them everything they know. So that's what we've been told. Imran, this next question will go to you. Fernanda Volcanis from YouTube asks, with no break-in, dog trapped in one of the rooms, no footprints with blood outside the house, couldn't the killer be a friend who went to sleep together and did it without haste and fear? So that's a hypothetical here.
Yeah, Anjanette, no, listen, I think the fact that there was no forced entry and there's no sort of evidence, residual evidence of showing an entrance or exit that may be linked to the killings raises some questions. I think law enforcement most likely started with their investigations, let's say in the 4 corners of that house and who was in that house at the time, and when they responded to the scene, the roommates, etc. There is that aspect of the house being a gathering point for college students and friends and whatnot that may complicate things, because the fact that there's no forced entry lends itself to an idea or a theory that this is someone who is familiar with one or all of the victims here. But, you know, I think law enforcement started in the closest proximity of where these bodies were found, and they've sort of expanded from that search. But it is very interesting that there's no forced entry, and there's no evidence of entering or exit regarding, you know, say, the bloody footprints or things like that. And I think law enforcement have looked at that, and they continue to look at what was in the 4 corners, if you will, of the house, and now beyond.
With a C, Mabbutt, M-A-B-B-U-T-T.
And I'm going to ask you, how long have you been doing this for?
I've been doing it for 16 years, and I just got reelected for another 4.
So what is it that, or I guess, when did you get the call on Sunday?
I got the call just a few minutes after noon that there were 4 homicides, but I didn't go to the scene because of law enforcement doing their investigation first, so I didn't actually go to the scene until about 5 or 5:30.
Can you walk us through, like, for our viewers, kind of the process between when police show up and then you guys getting the bodies and doing your examinations?
Sure. Well, law enforcement goes through and looks for any evidence, takes videos and pictures of everything in there, and they'll start talking with people. So I don't really need to be there for that. They can't move the bodies. I mean, the bodies have to stay as they were until the coroner gets there. So that's what my job is, to look at the bodies.
As a coroner, do you guys do the autopsies and all that?
No, we some do if they're an actual medical examiner, but we have forensic pathologists, and we contract with Spokane to do that.
So in your experience, what is it that you saw when you showed up?
Well, there was a lot of blood. It was a very sad scene with 4 murdered college students.
You're ruling all 4 deaths homicides?
Yes.
Okay. And can you give us a manner of death? Yeah.
I believe that the press release was that they were from a sharp object. So
So stabbings.
Yeah, I will know more after the autopsies tomorrow.
Trigger warning to this. My question is sharp object. A sharp object can necessarily mean different things. It doesn't have to be just a knife. So was different weapons used on the 4 students? Because the coroner hesitated in that part.
No, there are 4 homicides.
Okay. And when it comes to doing the investigation post-autopsy, that falls on you, correct?
Yes. It's my job to determine the manner and mechanism of death.
And then I know with toxicology results, there can often be, Mr. Washington, a delay. So do you have any idea how long it could take, if those were relevant, to get any type of results back on that?
Well, the toxicology reports, right, they usually take 4 to 6 weeks, sometimes longer. But they might, I don't think they're going to be relevant in the actual manner or cause of death.
I find this to be interesting. In every case we've covered, toxicological reports and tests are very important. Because what if the victims were poisoned, overdosed, or anything of that manner? But the coroner says she doesn't believe it's relevant.
Police found them approximately.
No, I don't know for sure.
Do we have like any, like, could it have been hours? Could it have been a day? Was it maybe close? Like, is there any sort of like time frame there?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, gotcha.
And you said the scene was really difficult. I mean, is this something you've had to deal with before in Moscow?
Since I've been coroner, there have been at least 2 other multiple homicide scenes that I've been involved in. So.
Would you say this is probably the most recent?
It's hard to just single it out. It's the only one I've been to where there have been 4 people at one scene. There have been the other ones have had multiple scenes.
And was anybody else injured, like any non-deceased people?
Not that I'm aware of, but I wouldn't necessarily be notified either.
Okay. I didn't know if that was like, because the injuries could be similar, it would matter to you.
Oh, right.
Okay.
Were the deceased all in close proximity to each other, or were they in different rooms?
I don't know that I can discuss that.
The coroner is willing to discuss everything, but not where the victims were found. So were the victims found in different areas, different places? We've been told that Maddie and Kaylee were found in Maddie's room, and XANA and Ethan were found in XANA's room. One was found on the bed and one was found blocking the door, allegedly. So why isn't the coroner willing to say that? Was that all made up along the way, I guess? Allegedly? Let's not forget, this is the first time, or the first interview that the coroner did. She was willing to say that a toxicological report is unnecessary in this case, which I find really strange. She mentioned that a sharp object was used in these horrific quadruple murders, but still she wouldn't say where the 4 victims was found. Knife was used in the attack and the knife wasn't found. Victims not the only people in the home. Police suspect no forced entry. Those are 3 important clues. I would assume that if it wasn't a forced entry, it had to be someone who's been in this house before. And I do not mean to criticize, but this was known to be a party house. Many people have entered this house. We've seen it in the police body cams.
We're not 100% sure if the door was unlocked, but there was no damage to anything, and the door was still open when we got there.
The door was still open when the police got there. Is the chief talking about the front door or the sliding door? But I guess by that time, the Sigma Chi fraternity boys were called to the scene.
We're not 100% sure if the door was unlocked, but there was no damage to anything, and the door was still open when we got there.
As the interim chief at WSU, he told KREM 2 today, this early in the investigation, law enforcement always has to be careful about what details are made public.
Just trying to make sure that when detectives go out and interview people, it's based on what they know, not what they've heard on the news. And so it's really a balancing act for them, trying to release enough information so that if there is a potential threat, that the public can take precautions for that, but also at the same time not jeopardize a homicide investigation.
Moscow police have walked back on claims that the community is safe after Sunday's stabbings. At yesterday's press conference, Chief James Fry in Moscow said they could not guarantee that there is no threat to the public. The department and other agencies have since stepped up patrols around the community. Our Janelle Finch is now live in Moscow with more on that. Janelle?
The people I spoke to today here in Moscow say they commend the Moscow police for bringing in added resources, the Idaho State Police and FBI, to figure out who could have committed these crimes against these students. Today on Facebook, the Moscow School District informed parents that Idaho State Patrol cars would be monitoring the area around its 7 schools as they are in town to support local police in finding who was responsible for 4 murders earlier this week. One Moscow School District mom says she's thankful Moscow PD are calling on the necessary agencies to help figure out what exactly happened on Sunday and protect the community.
Being around town today, this morning, I noticed quite a few more law enforcement just out and about. I'm really grateful for them.
In a press conference yesterday, we learned from the Moscow Police Chief, James Fry, that the department has called on 25-plus investigators, the Idaho State Police, and FBI to assist in solving this case. As we've mentioned at this time, no suspect is in custody. The police department maintains that this was a targeted attack, and for that reason, the people I spoke to here in Moscow today say they don't personally feel threatened in the community. But still, the University of Idaho is telling people here to remain vigilant and share any and all information you can with Moscow Police.
911. We're learning that the caller was not, repeat, not either of the 2 roommates who live in the house and apparently slept through the massacre. So the mystery is, who did make that 911 call to police, and how did that person make the gruesome discovery? I spoke with County Prosecutor Bill Thompson.
It's an essential part of the case. Whoever discovered the scene first, whoever initiated the contact with law enforcement is all part of understanding what occurred and the timeline of what occurred.
He told me the 2 roommates may have critical information.
The investigators are already talking to them and trying to get from them everything they can possibly remember about what they may have seen, what they may have heard, what their activities were, what they know about the activities of their housemates.
A new wrinkle, former LAPD detective Mark Furman, yes, that Mark Furman from the O.J. Simpson trial, now lives in Idaho and is claiming that victim Kaylee Gonsalves had a stalker.
I talked to one student, and I agree with this. It was twice removed from the person that said it, Kaylee, But Kaylee 2 months ago complained about a stalker.
Only when I met him alone.
This social media video shows all 5 women in the kitchen of the house they shared. We're learning that the killer, for some reason, bypassed the rooms where the 2 young survivors were sleeping.
Their story was they heard partying, they heard noise, but they just, as usual, said, there's partying going on, and they locked the door.
Another mystery, where of the killings? Why didn't his barking wake everyone up? Autopsies on the 4 students found each had multiple stab wounds. Some had defensive wounds, showing they fought with the attacker. And there was no sexual assault. County Coroner Kathy Mabbutt is describing the murders as personal.
Were they found in beds?
Yes. There were multiple stab wounds. The fatal ones were to the chest area or the upper body area.
The father of XANA Kernodle says her wounds show she fought for her life.
Bruises, maybe hurt by the knife or whatever. She's a tough kid. Whatever she wanted to do, she could do it.
And we're learning that another victim, Madison Mogan, had planned to spend Thanksgiving with the family of her boyfriend, Jake Schreiger. His mother says his world has been turned upside down. There's growing anger over the progress of the investigation in Moscow, Idaho. Madison Mogan's aunt says the lack of information, statements from left field, and lack of outreach to the public to gain information has made this even more painful. On a typical weeknight, Main Street in this small college town is bustling, but not tonight. So many people are fearful over these 4 brutal homicides that many students have left campus and returned home, leaving Moscow, Idaho, a virtual ghost town. I found University of Idaho student Grace Martin, who lives across the street from the murder scene, as she joined the exodus of students heading home.
Living next to the crime scene, it feels very dark. There's kind of a spirit of death around a bit.
Abigail Spencer, news editor of the campus newspaper, says the lack of information is fueling fear.
They keep saying it's an isolated incident, but if we don't have an idea of who it is, nobody knows what to look out for. No one knows how to keep themselves and their friends and family safe.
For this to have been a targeted incident, I personally believe it had to come from someone the 4 students knew.